Well, would you look at this? Finally a video with me back on the bike. It's been a while since I last recorded a ride, and it's definitely overdue here. A motovlogging channel with hardly any motovlogging content. But that's completely my fault. Is it the train? It looks like there's a train here. And we're out of there. So yeah, super overdue for a video here. Let's see if I still remember how to do this shit. This is gonna be kind of a throwback to my old kind of style of videos, where my regular kind of videos, if you will, where I do the how-tos and talk about, you know, issues surrounding getting into motorcycles. Just and that seems to be kind of my specialty. Specifically, I thought it would be a good idea with me hardly riding recently, or hardly recording my rides, that I kind of talk about the issue related to, or the topic of, who should get a motorcycle? Like, who are motorcycles for? Because a motorcycle for sure is not for everyone. Even though you might think a motorcycle is cool, if you haven't ridden one before, you don't exactly know that. I mean, they might seem cool, but are you really cut out for motorcycle life? And there's a lot of aspects surrounding that. There's basically three major kinds of riders, maybe four. There is the daily commuter, which is kind of like myself. If the weather's not completely shit outside, I will most likely be on my motorcycle going to and from work. And when I was at school, I was going to school on this. It was between my motorcycles and my scooter. I have the FZ07, my Honda CBR500r, and my scooter, which is a PCX 150. And I was between those three, I was doing my daily commuting between school, work, and home. The second kind of rider is the one who will maybe just take their bike out for joy rides. So just every now and then, if the weather's good, they'll just take their bike out. And then the third is kind of like the joy rider, but will even ride it less frequently, meaning they'll maybe ride it just a few times a year. And most of the time, it's just locked up in their garage. They don't have a lot of time to ride their bike. They kind of forget about it. They always wish, oh, I wish I could take my bike out, but I don't really feel like it today. It's hard to tell at this point for a lot of people, if they haven't had an experience on bikes, what kind of rider they'll be. Obviously, if you want to get a bike and you're going to drop some money on it, you want to try to make sure you're going to ride it a lot. Otherwise, I think if you don't ride it a lot, it's kind of just a wasted purchase there, and it's just rotting in your garage, you know? I personally get lazy every now and then, and don't always get a chance to ride my bike, or if the weather is sometimes less than perfect, I'll be like, oh shit, I'll just take the car instead, you know? I don't feel like dealing with that. But there's a lot of factors that you should consider before getting a motorcycle. And I've kind of talked about this in one of my very, very first videos, I think, and when I was doing the pros and cons of riding a motorcycle. So this will build off of that a little bit. In terms of factors you should consider when getting a motorcycle, you need to understand like what it's actually like to be on a motorcycle, the kind of commuting you need to do with your motorcycle, and if the motorcycle with all that is going to be a good fit. So for example, let's say you live in, I don't know, the suburbs, and your job is 40 minutes to an hour away. Heavy traffic, a lot of highway riding. Will a motorcycle be a good fit? Well, let's take that specific situation and look at it from a couple different angles. First of all, do you want to be riding for all that time? Riding can be pretty fatiguing, and you can get kind of tired and exhausted from the ride. So if you're doing it early in the morning, do you want to be on a bike for that long before you get into work? Or would you rather just be in a car where you have your, you know, the luxury comforts that a car offers before you go into work? Building off of that, there's weather. Right now it's about 90 degrees outside. My commute is only about 10-15 minutes, so I don't have a chance to get too hot. I mean, I'm still pretty warm right now, especially when I hit a stoplight. You have a lot of stoplights on your commute, and if you're doing that for an hour, you're probably going to be sweating by the time you get to work. Depending on the job you have and kind of the image you need to present while going to work, that might not be ideal. Say you're wearing a suit, or you have to wear a suit. Do you want to wear a suit underneath this, or are you going to keep a suit at work? What options do you have to get around the fact that you're probably going to be sweating a lot? I'm someone who is a big proponent of all the gear all the time. What is that dude doing? There's like a sidewalk right there. And because of that, that adds to obviously the heat factor that I'm dealing with here. Even though this jacket has vents, I'm wearing a full jacket with a full long sleeve button-up shirt underneath this. You know, that guy's on a bike pedaling with no shirt on and he's sweating. So that's kind of one thing that you should consider. I mean, does your commute, does it make sense for you to have a bike for it? Similar to that, I mean, do you want to be in traffic a lot, or do you feel comfortable on the roads that you'd be taking to your commute? Riding is not safe. There's no joke about it. I'll be completely honest, I am a pussy when it comes to riding in a lot of situations. I don't like to speed. I don't like to push myself or the bike a lot. And you can argue, well, that's not the point of having a bike. Sure, but the kind of rider I am mostly the kind of commuter, which I'm doing commutes like this, roads like this. A bike like this is perfect. Still do highways and have fun on weekends when I'm not going to work. So I do enjoy having a bike and everything, but I just realized that there are dangers involved with riding, and I accept that risk every time I get on this bike. I've taken the motorcycle safety course, and I understand that it's obviously safer for me to take a car. So if you're someone who, for whatever reason, wants to minimize risk and doesn't like the idea of adding risk to his or her commute, a motorcycle might not be ideal. And of course, a lot of factors go in. I mean, just how congested are the roads that you're going on, and the kind of drivers in your town. Do you have idiots like that who don't really look before they're going? And, you know, you can have that everywhere, but some areas, especially mine, where I have a lot of older people driving around who really shouldn't be driving around, and I also have a lot of tourists who aren't familiar with the roads, the rules on some of the roads here, and they mess up. That should also be factored in. So that is definitely something you should consider before getting a bike for your commute. Or another thing is, should you get a motorcycle, is what kind of budget are you working with? While in general motorcycles are, I would argue, cheaper for a lot of bikes like the ones I have, cheaper to buy up front compared to a car, cheaper to insure than a car, cheaper to maintain than a car, and easier to maintain than a car. It's not just the cost of the bike. Obviously, you have to keep up with your maintenance a lot more. I think it's even more important to keep up with your maintenance, and a lot of it you're going to be doing on your own if you don't have a shop that's able to do it. So do you have the time to maintain your bike, make sure everything's in working order? Do you have the knowledge and expertise or the dedication to spend some time learning more about your bike? Or you're just going to get your bike and just ride it? You know, those are things you have to consider. Also, tied in with that is, do you have the budget for gear? It's not just buying the bike and maintaining it. Are you willing to invest in your safety gear to make sure that you are as safe as possible when you're riding this bike? Are you going to buy the right helmet that fits well, the right jacket, gloves, possibly pants if you're going to go for more extreme riding conditions, or if you have a commute where you're maybe highway riding a little more, that you'd want to benefit from those pants? Factor that in as well. God, like right now I am hot. I tell you, if I personally had that large commute to a city in which I was riding for over 40 minutes or even 30 minutes, I would, chances are, on a day like this, try to take the car. I would want to live much closer to work, just because right now I know I'm sweating and I don't feel like going to work like that. If it's any worse than this, it's terrible. And then a couple more points here. They also kind of relate back to what we've been talking about, but weather. Are you in a place that's going to rain most of the time, or is always hot or always cold? What ability do you have to deal with those kind of weather situations? Do you mind the heat? Do you mind the cold? That's going to dictate how much of the year and what days you can ride on. If you're going to get a motorcycle for your daily commuting, but you don't want to ride in those conditions, but it rains or it's always too hot for, say, 90% of the year, well, then 90% of the year, you're going to either have a shitty riding experience or you're going to wish you had a car. A lot of people just think, oh, I just want a bike, and a bike is cool. I want to do daily commuting on my bike and whatever. I just want to have a bike. I don't need a car. That was kind of my thought when I first got this, which is kind of the main reason I'm making this video right now. But yeah, factor in the idea that you're not always going to want to ride your bike. You could be the biggest fan. What a dumbass! What a dumbass! Oh, you're so stupid. You're so incredibly stupid. Oh, what an idiot. Ah! So, yeah, just like that. Imagine I was in front of that car. He saw the green light over there, and he didn't see me in front of him. That could have been me knocked over like that, just because we have an idiot up front here. All things you should consider. You gonna try to go again, buddy? Oh, it's so hot. Right now, I am dying. From the heat outside, the sun, the lack of wind, and all these other car engines adding to the heat here. It just sucks. That's an S car. And I would say another big one, there's obviously more factors into this, but let's talk about parking and safety for your bike, either for both at home and wherever you're riding to. So for example, I'm lucky I have a garage. I can safely store my bike securely at my house and lock my garage. And when it comes to work, I can park my bike out front, and it's a safe location, and I'm not worried about theft or damage to my bike while it's at work. Same for school. However, especially if I was to move to the city, chances are I would lose my garage. And in terms of parking, I would have a lack of parking. I'd probably have to pay for parking, and maybe they don't have designated motorcycle spots. And it would, I'd probably be more at risk for the bike to get stolen. So theft is a big issue that you should definitely consider. Theft and the safety and storage of your bike. Tied in with storage, where, let's say there's bad weather, and you live in an apartment, do you really want to keep your bike outside? First of all, if you live in an apartment, you should find a safe way to lock your bike and try to keep it indoors. I hate the idea of just having my bike outside in bad conditions like that. So I would argue that those are some of the main factors that you should consider when getting a motorcycle and deciding if a motorcycle is in fact for you. No, dude, no, oh my God, why? Hopefully if you're someone who's interested in getting a motorcycle or considering getting a motorcycle for commuting, these are thoughts that you can have in the back of your mind, and it'll help you out. And until next time, guys, peace.